Hyper-independence may seem like a really good attribute to have, and it most certainly is good to experience independence and self-reliance. And so there's nothing wrong with being financially independent and having your own independent aspirations, especially as it pertains to women. First off, you need to never buy into this narcissistic nonsense of you being masculine for being successful. Any man that claims that you're masculine because of any career choice, any physical attribute you have, that is somebody that is intimidated by you. That is somebody that's afraid of rejection and abandonment. That is not something that you need to even concern with or consider. You need to fully develop yourself to the greatest extent of your capability, because there is not a more important time in human history for a woman to be independent of men. You see, men that think that they need to be needed are people that rely on codependency, devaluation, financial manipulation, and they try to control you by reducing your value. They are not comfortable with your education, your independence, your success, or your past relationship history, because they live in constant fear of abandonment and inferiority. They may look like alphas, they may pump iron, they may be completely enhanced with every kind of male hormone in the planet and covered in tats. But if somebody's sitting here complaining about modern women, that is a victim, and that is not somebody that you should even consider. That is not somebody that you should allow to paint any kind of rendition of men, that if you encounter that stuff, you leave it alone, okay? But back to the topic at hand. Independence is a really good thing to have structurally, okay? So structurally independent. Now, emotional independence, where you feel a compulsive need for self-reliance, is a different phenomenon. The problem is that comes from like a fear of abandonment. You see, that comes from a need to be in control arbitrarily that often negates the contribution of people. You see, when somebody is getting close to you and you feel a need to be independent, that comes from being hurt. And so what ends up happening is you undermine the contribution because it might start to appear like control. But you see, if you start to resist the contribution and you start to interpret it as control and you start to get anxiety and defiant and defensive, it actually will manifest that as a real experience for you, because the other person will feel somewhat hurt or not understand why their effort to like offer a little advice or direction or anything like that was arbitrarily met with, some form of anger or resistance. And so independence is great in terms of a fiscal reality, in terms of your goals, your thought process. But when it comes to emotional independence, you see, that is something that actually creates a wedge in the relationship, because you see, you negate the other person arbitrarily. Like you're trying to keep yourself segregated and not dependent upon them. But you see, that also comes from something where you actually might start to feel dependent. And so when you're in that state, you actually start to experience vulnerability and fear that reduces your consciousness and makes you small. And when you start to have that, it might actually contribute to the other person thinking that you need more help than you do. Because you see, if you arbitrarily oppose other people simply to try to be independent, what ends up happening is some of your behavior becomes irrational, because something they're saying may be very insightful and accurate. So they might be telling you something that's part of their expertise. Like they just might have knowledge in a particular field, or they might have really good ideas. But you see, not only that, you kill their self-expression, you kill their contribution in love. That you're not feeling loved, you're feeling the opposite. And so what ends up happening is you get disconnected from yourself and your partner, that you don't feel the love that they are for you, and their efforts go unnoticed. And so that person starts to disconnect too, because they feel like they can't do anything to help you. And so you become, in a way, isolated. You see, you actually negate your own power to be independent, because your independence should benefit from the contribution, wisdom, and knowledge of others. But you see, arbitrarily needing to do things on your own is actually going to affect your overall success in life. Because being able to cooperate emotionally and being free is going to empower the ongoing genesis of knowledge and wisdom that's going to empower you, that there are a lot of people that can really contribute to you. And it doesn't need to be something that makes you feel smaller than them, because that's not really what's going on. And so you need to be able to objectively understand the motives of people independent of your triggers, because when you get triggered into this state of needing to be arbitrarily independent, then you automatically negate the other person. You automatically treat them as a villain, or you treat them as somebody that's trying to lecture you or control you. And it isn't really what's happening, but it will feel like it is to you. And that means that you're going to escalate conflict and arguing. And you might cause that person to end up being defiant or a little more forceful than necessary. And they'll be frustrated simply because you'll be projecting intentions on them that aren't really there. And so that might escalate to the point where there might be a little heightened voices, so they might seemingly be yelling at you, but it's because sometimes when people don't have their communications delivered and people project on them because the person's arbitrarily being independent, you see, for them, it feels like being intellectually negated. It's actually, you're projecting in a way. You see, when you project because you're feeling these feelings, your feelings paint them as a big villain. It's almost like you become the abandoned child that was hurt, and they become the bad parent, and then you become the small person that you think they're trying to convert you into, and then they become highly resistant to that projection because it completely misconstrues their intention. They feel invisible. And when somebody feels invisible and can't contribute to you, it's like that's what their creative mind is there to do. And so you have a person that's using their mind to help conjure extra ideas, extra pathways, extra joy in your life, extra ways for you to do this or do that, but you're not seeing it. And so you're being oblivious to the love that's all around you. And so the irony is, while you're trying to protect yourself, you're actually propagating the very disappointment that you're afraid of. Because, see, you're afraid of abandonment. And so while trying to remain hypervigilant in your independence to protect yourself, you're actually setting up the stage for you need to be independent, because this is something that actually destroys relationships. And so that's the irony of being emotionally independent arbitrarily, is that it forces you to be on your own. It forces you, but you see, you also feel alone and abandoned. And so now it's a catch-22, where the person that's hyper vigilant in their independence is also the person that feels like nobody's there for them. They're tired. They're having to do it all on their own, and they want a partner. But you see, they want that partner, and they want to avoid being alone, but then it's a sabotaging energy. And so you got to get that resolved. So you see, independence structurally is not the same as independence emotionally, right? And so this isn't about like letting people dominate or control you. It's about actually objectively looking at what they're saying. You see, rather than defending yourself and analyzing, you should allow your imagination to investigate the plausibility of their contribution. And so if you just look objectively, then you'll see their true nature. And if you're able to just see in your imagination what it is that they're contributing to you, then you could take that and it'll become the architecture of your own wisdom. And so you'll become a wisdom magnet, and you could still be independent. See, the thing is you can be independent financially and independent in terms of your own choices and what you want to do, but why not be fully informed about other ideas and open your mind and heart back up? And so being a magnet to contribution is something that would be very powerful. And so rather than being fiercely independent, how about you be fiercely in acknowledgement of the contribution of other people? So turn down the independence and start to look at the motive of other people. Next time somebody's trying to contribute to you, stop being defensive and say thank you. Just stop and say thank you. And then get connected with that first person. This will change your life. So find that person that you've been pushing away and then say thank you to them. Reconcile. Say, you know what? I've been fiercely independent. I'm going to be independent in my life, but I don't want to be emotionally independent. I don't want to wall you out for no reason. You've been trying to make a difference for me. I can see it retroactively. I've had a big challenge. Every time that you've tried to offer me something and I pushed it away, I'm not going to do that anymore. I want to first just say thank you. And man, I can't wait to hear some of your ideas. Let's go get this thing. Be independent with your partner. You and them versus the world is a lot better than you versus everyone.